This will potentially be a short but extremely divisive video, spawning many comments for and against Blizzard by blind people wanting to push their own personal agendas into the situation. I personally don't really have an agenda outside of just having a fun game, so really just looking for conversation and hope to prove it with the rest of the video points that I have. But to start off for me personally, I haven't had a burning desire to rush leveling or even hit the new raid like I did in Phase 1, despite hitting level 40 almost a week ago. I've been mainly slow rolling, doing a mix of questing, Scarlet Monastery, the PvP event, and just some of my own solo grinding. But I can't help feeling a little disappointed. So far, everything kind of seems the same to non-Season of Discovery vanilla WoW at this level range. Now first off, just to get this out of the way, I'm not by any means saying that SoD is a failure, or that the developers in charge at Blizzard are the worst game developers ever. Overall, I'm feeling just content so far. Not good, but content with the way they're handling things, from adding new content like the PvP events, the new leveling raids, or smaller stuff like, the sleeping bag quests. But I also have to kind of applaud their changes to like GDKPs, the rolling level caps, so people aren't feeling rushed and the need to rush to level 60, trying to crack down on bots despite honestly how hard that problem is, and the fact that they could probably ban thousands of bots an hour and still get the flack that they aren't doing enough by the player base. And with the cherry of all that on top being the new class changes and all the balancing issues that those bring. In my opinion, they've moved fast to fix some things and probably too slow on others, but they have at least moved on damn near all of them, and they've tried to get to them as soon as they possibly could, even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty that this current merger with Microsoft would bring. However, despite all the defense I've just laid at the developers' feet, I still feel the old cliche, the more things change, the more they stay the same in regards to this phase. Since it's been roughly 4 weeks since the launch of Phase 2, that should give us a nice time frame to compare how things are unfolding versus the first phase. My first complaint is just that the runes themselves come way too late this phase to feel overly excited about them and any potential changes they may bring to your class. Yes, you can get them sooner, especially if a higher level friend, guildmate, or even just a random good Samaritan helps you out, and does the bulk of the work of combat if required, or you just follow a guide online, and you're done in 10-15 minutes depending on what the actual quest requires to get the rune. But that is an exception and not the rule. I question their design choices to delay all of these runes till you're basically well into your 30s, at least for the Warlock class, when in Phase 1 you had a tier progression to follow that gave you a nice batch of runes to get till level 10, and another batch to level 20, and then you had some at 25 that you grinded out. This just overall seems like a bad design choice to not basically hand everyone at least one of the least powerful and least sought after runes for both the belt and boot slots to level with until we advance to a higher enough level to unlock the more sought after, better runes. The other annoying thing is how cross-continent a lot of these quest runes have become. Constantly running back and forth on foot for an hour to unlock one rune isn't something I would consider fun and would consider it more padding than anything. I think I made it perfectly clear what points I'm talking about, so I'll just wrap up by again summarizing and saying that having no new runes to get before basically being at the phase max level and requiring such long lazy walking quest lines was a big bummer to me this phase. Similarly, things like the sleeping bag. Oh, the sleeping bag. I have such a love-hate relationship with this thing because even though it does provide a nice boost to XP and allows you to gain rested XP anywhere when you sleep in it while logged out, instead of just while you're in a capital or inn, I didn't even unlock this thing until I was already level 40, because 1, I learned early on I can just bum someone else's bag, and 2, just like with most of the runes, the amount of cross-continent travel involved, even with a guide, makes me not want to do it until I got my level 40 mount. With the added kick to the nuts being you need to get the sleeping bag quest again on every alt you want to complete it on because it's not account bound or allowed to be mailed between any of your own characters on that account. Do we really need to artificially lengthen it all with travel on foot so that other players will then turn to like Warlock summons or mage portals, circumventing all of that anyways, and then making people complain more about players ruining the economy and supporting real money trading by selling summons and portals? My other big issue with it is just how long you need to sleep in the actual thing to get the buff. 3 minutes may not seem like a lot, but when you're sitting there in a dungeon doing nothing waiting for someone and then they screw up and renew their stacks and it instead makes it a 4, 5, 6 minute wait instead of a 3 if everyone syncs up is really annoying. I propose lengthening it down to just 1 minute at most for the full stack, or 20 seconds a stack for the individual stacks, because it isn't fun just sitting there doing nothing, or having someone complain that you're going ahead of them before they have their buff ready. The Stranglethorn PvP event so far, from what I've seen, experienced, and read opinions online about, seems fine. I've participated quite a few times now and have all my main rewards that I wanted to get, so I'm not really heading to the event every 3-hour reset anymore. But when I did play it more consistently, when it wasn't a laggy slideshow despite my FPS being a rock solid 90, the random massive FAA PvP with a 5-man group can be a lot of fun. And again, the rewards are really nice regardless of your specialization. With the added bonus, it can also be a nice break from a typical Battleground rep grind or just any grind that you're doing, since you can purchase honor and rep off the coins. However, once you buy the rewards you want, the event becomes little more than a way to farm Arathi Basin rep, and that won't be enough to entice a portion of players to participate after they finish up the main rewards they want and that Arathi Basin rep grind. The other annoying part is that they're actively working on it, so there's a 50-50 chance the event becomes a slideshow in terms of network lag. Quite a few times I've had spells not activate, and when it's at its worst, it won't activate for over 20 to 30 seconds after I cast the spell, only to be informed that the target I'm attempting to hit with the spell is already dead once it does cast. Once Blizzard gets the layers mathed out though, this should go away, but it won't fix the original issue I brought up, which is just that I have a feeling people will really start participating the later in the phase that it goes, since they'll have finished all their reputation and made reward goals. And while not all players are driven by rewards, I would say the average player is definitely driven by rewards. I don't really have much to say about the raid mechanics of Gnomer yet, since I haven't personally experienced it and don't really want to spoil myself, so I haven't watched any streams or clears of it or any guides or anything, since I've taken a much slower approach to this phase leveling compared to phase 1. However, I haven't seen any complaints from people online or people talking about it in my guild that weren't just basically really kind of honestly stupid complaints, like how the raid is too easy because one guild cleared it within like 26 hours of the phase 2 launch, and therefore it needs to have its difficulty buffed up. To me, that doesn't mean the raid's too easy in general for the general populace. It means it's too easy for that small subsect of percentage of players who have clearly mastered and dedicated this game to such an insane degree that they can pull something like that off. On the flip side, I've also seen lots of players calling for it to be nerfed already because their pug failed at X boss. Both things I think are possibly a little premature, considering there's only been a handful of useful lockout information to base this on since phase 2 was released. But even considering all that, outside of some general tweaks, like maybe reducing the armor a bit more even after they've already dropped it a bit, I don't think the developers should be really trying to balance loving raids around either end of this small subset of the population, both on the end of the spectrum where the players are too good, and the other end of the spectrum where the players may not be too good. At least in my opinion. The only part I have spoiled was taking a look at the loot to make a video about it, and like I thought, the drops aren't as insane compared to the power of BFG drops compared to the other average avenues of gear acquisition in BFD's level range. Again, at least in my opinion. Sure, there's lots of powerful gear in Gnomer, but it's hardly the insane jump people were predicting to happen that I saw in my comments and on the forums, and many class lists have a good portion of items coming from world drops, PvP, crafting, as well as Gnomer raid drops. So that's kind of a win for drop variety in my book at least. Wrapping up, I do apologize as this isn't my usual form of video, but I just wanted to hopefully facilitate some friendly dialogue about the current state of Phase 2. Hopefully it's clear from my points I presented about the new runes coming in too late in the leveling process, all the cross-continent walking quest chains for new runes and other items being extreme buzzkill, the STV event being acceptable but still having room for improvement, and all the debate surrounding the new Roma raid that I don't really hate SoD. I just expected a bit more, to be honest, after their pitch at BlizzCon. For example, with all their Scarlet Monastery teasers at BlizzCon, I really expected there to be something in the Scarlet Monastery this phase to really capitalize on those teasers. Maybe something is still coming, but going through the Scarlet Monastery from 30 to 40 and experiencing the same dungeons with minor loot changes was honestly disappointing for me. Similarly, I'm not sure why they picked Gnomer as the dungeon to redo as a leveling raid when Scarlet Monastery would have been a far more impactful fan favorite and have the biggest chance for new storylines within the lore, at least in my opinion. Imagine redoing it all so it's all connected into one big raid instance, with the army and cathedral roles leading to their specific wings as little shortcuts to get as you cleared, you know, the graveyard or library wings. Just overall, it feels like a missed opportunity from the developers, because not only would they have stopped people from just basically dungeon grinding and making the world feel very dead, like the comments that I've heard from people, by revamping SM into a leveling raid, but the actual lore and epicness of Scarlet Monastery, I think, lends itself to a more epic raid than Gnomer could have ever hoped to be. And with that, if you did enjoy, you know, my content, have comments, anything like that, feel free to list it below. And other than that, have a good night.